Well,
We should be live in the next 10 seconds.
okay. All right, here we go. Okay, I think we're back here. Hold on.
Except we're missing a couple of commissioners.
Do we need
We
a
are
quorum
streaming
for a
live.
workshop?
Oh,
I'm here, only I'm incognito now.
oh, there you go.
Neil Jameson is still off making himself a cup of coffee. Or maybe it's something a little stronger than that. Okay, who are we still waiting for? It looks like
Neil.
Neil and Jim Gale, the dark
No.
here.
No, Jim's here.
I'm here.
Okay, I see a blank screen. I don't see your smiling face, Jim.
I've been having, let's see, a couple of times turning this on and off works, I think.
When I retire, I'm going to open a home service computer. It's going to be called Turn It On and Turn It Off, Turn It On Again.com. That'll solve 75% of the problems, and the rest of them I'll say go call the Geek Squad or something. And I'll sell $1,
Tom, we had a problem at the office with our scanner, which we need for a lot of things. And for some reason, somebody changed the setting to do one thing and that completely crashed the thing. So it's been down for 3 days. And so
Oh my
we had to
God.
bring, we had to bring the genius involved with the IT company we use to address the issue. So he did that remotely from Paris.
Yeah,
today.
I can imagine.
So it was like 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock his time, and he's diving back into software he's never seen before to try to get it to run. And sure enough, a couple hours later, he had it going. So
Yeah,
that's
this is the most amazing thing I've seen. I mean, you probably get your title searches done from Mumbai, and anybody we used to, one of the real estate companies I worked for used to have our file review done by somebody in the Philippines somewhere, it was very thorough and very good and very sharp. And I don't know where we got him, but my goodness. In a real estate company, every file has to be reviewed by somebody other than the person that put the file together. So it's a massive undertaking, and it was wonderful to do it where they've now got to go on site, but all kinds of things.
Would it be all right if we start?
We can certainly start, Jim. I can't see you, but happy to start with,
Yeah,
with the blanks.
My computer's acting up here and I don't know why. But can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, coming in loud and clear. Or loud but not clear, I guess, so.
Well, the first item we have on the workshop this evening is something that we talked about last spring. And I think it was Commissioner Gordon brought it to our attention that every 10 years under our county charter, it requires us to codify the administrative codes and policy documents that we all live by. And we talked about it back in April, May at the first time, and then we kind of took some time off, but 2020 is coming to an end here. And I thought it'd be prudent for us to have a conversation over these documents so that we might be able to line them up for a December meeting. And so what I've done is I've kind of packaged up in your packets this evening, one, the county charter, and what the county charter reads. And I don't think anyone has brought forth any recommendations on changing the county charter, because I think we all know that that's a bigger process than what we want to jump into. Secondly, I've included a number of bylaws, and I've kind of done some searching around countywide on what we have for boards and committees that work under some kind of format of a trustee or committee bylaws. And so I've included those into your packet. The administrative regs I did not include. That's about probably a 200-page document, and I didn't think you'd want to have that. However, it was last updated by the commissioners in 2020. I think it was late winter you updated that. So the commissioners have had their eyes on the document recently, and especially we did a total rewrite of the document back in 2019. Back in May when we were talking, one of the things that the commissioners expressed was not really wanting to jump into the finer particulars of how policies are written. And those are pertaining to the sheriff's office, the jail, and the communications. Those policies are handled internally. However, I put those there for discussion purposes only because the charter does read that policy documents get lumped in here. But I think that would be a monumental undertaking if that was something that the commissioners wanted to go in. So really this evening, I wanted to bring forth the bylaws. And I think the bylaws are documents that you don't typically put your eyes on. And if it wasn't for needing to codify all documents, you probably wouldn't be jumping into what different bylaws look or say. But I have included the Board of Commissioners bylaws, which you have recently amended and then amended back because we were changing fiscal years, and then we weren't changing, I should say, budget years. I've also included the Board of Assessment Review overarching documents, the Community Development Municipal Oversight Committee, the Recreation Board of Trustees, which is the cross insurance arena, and then the Regional Communication Center. Of the 5 documents, there are no proposals to amend 4 of them. The Regional Communications Center, you will notice that that is redlined. And that document was a work in progress back in the spring, early summer. And it was put on ice a little bit because we had the pandemic and we had some staff changeovers in that department that we really did not get it addressed with the Board of the Regional Communications Board. We did finally get a Regional Communications Board meeting within the last couple of weeks. At that meeting, we talked about the bylaws and the changes around the bylaws, and a small subcommittee of the board is going to meet and work through the different changes to the bylaws. And that's what you see in red. And I should point out that the areas that are shaded, if your copy is shaded gray, those two areas are going to be completely rewritten so that they make better sense of what is taking place in current day versus what took place in the early years of the Regional Communication Center. However, there are some which the former director had proposed. And so this is still a working document, what I'm trying to say. And it's in my hopes that we will have something a little bit more confirmed in the December meeting. But at this time, it is a document that's under construction or edits. So I will stop talking and pass it on to the commissioners to seek how you would like to proceed in codifying these documents and whether you need any further information, would like to change any of these documents. Thank you.
Who has a comment? Any comments? Yes, Steve Gordon.
And Jim very nicely put it in red. And talking about the communication center, if you go to their amendments to this and other agreements, what they require, the one that he's marked out there is if you're going to make a change to this agreement or any of the agreements that they handle, it requires a quorum for bylaw changes shall be 1/2 of the voting membership plus one. Well, that means 7 people could change out of 25 could change the bylaws. I don't think that's really what they're asking for. I think what they're saying is a bylaw change shall require a majority vote plus one of the full board. To me, that would make more sense.
Yeah, sorry, Steve, I'm looking, is this section 7 amendments?
Yes. You
Okay,
see where the red,
yeah, I see that.
all right, now here's, they say a quorum for a bylaw change. And I think what they really are trying to get is to have a supermajority to make the bylaw change.
So how many members are on the, is it 25 on the,
Right.
Yes. And Commissioner Gordon's exactly right. That's what it is.
okay, yeah, I get you. No, I get you. Sorry, I was trying to do the math in my head and it's a little late. So it would be, yeah, essentially 7 out of 25. I mean, and under these, do the county commissioners adopt the bylaws as well?
Yes.
So how is this supposed to work?
Well,
That's a number, that's in item 3, which is an addition.
right.
So, I mean, if this goes through as proposed, then as Steve points out, seven people on the board of the communication center could approve a bylaw change, but then it still has to get past the county commissioners.
Correct.
Is that correct?
It would actually be half of the membership, which would be 12.5 plus 1, which would be 13.5 people would need to make the recommendation to the county commissioners.
Except I think Steve's point is the way this change is written, it's the quorum meeting is going to be half. Once you got a quorum, then it's only a majority. Is that, Steve? Is that your point?
Yeah, that's the point.
So, you know,
So my suggestion is that it be written a bylaw change shall require a majority vote plus one of the full board.
And I, I think Steve is correct that that would have been the intent because it follows on supermajority provisions in the charter and, that say that exact same thing, basically. That the supermajority is a majority of the members plus one.
How many of the 25 members typically show up for a meeting is my question. I mean,
Next point.
well, I mean, because if most of the time 24 of the 25 turn up, I'm not so worried about this, but this is one, I suspect this is one where if you got 20, and these are like member communities and so forth. And if they don't bother to send anybody, as soon as you get a quorum, then a quarter of the membership can pass anything they want.
Right.
Which is, yeah, I mean, I see your point, Steve. I hadn't caught that before. I see your point.
I will tell you that the last meeting we had 12, and so we didn't have a vote then, but this document was not ready to be voted on. And then they usually run anywhere from 10 to 15 individuals.
I think that's a good insight. Maybe we'll talk about that further. Any other comments from folks? So Steve, or sorry, Jim, I think you've got some partial guidance on a couple of fine points and then some other things to consider. Maybe we take this up. Not sure that we can accommodate Steve Gordon's thoughts on between now and December, but it might be worth thinking about that.
We'll try it.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this particular item?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. And
Travis, can you put the slides show up?
what was that?
Asking Travis to put the PowerPoint presentation that I emailed him
Oh,
today.
thank you.
Like to just run through the where we're standing with the budget. What I'm going to show you is a budget that has been amended in red, as you can tell from the front cover. And this has been a lot of conversations and work done by Alex and myself over the last couple of weeks, and really analyzing where we stand with the 2020 budget and how maybe where we stand positively with the 2020 budget, we can take care of some things in the 2020 budget because of some revenues being strong for us, and minimize the impacts to the 2021 budget. So I'd like to quickly go through a number of slides just to show you what we've done, and then the last 2 or 3 slides will be how we made it happen, and we'll have dialogue after that. So Travis, you want to jump next slide? So really the biggest difference here is going to be on the county side, the county general fund. We really have not been able to touch the jail expenses or the cross insurance expenses. However, we have been able to reduce the county general fund down from $243,976 or 1.1% down to $106,339 or 0.46%. With total expenses, our total expenditures down at the bottom being $473,150 or 0.79% of an impact versus the 1.02% that we proposed back in September. Next slide. The jail expenses have not changed whatsoever. We weren't, other than the 4% cap, we weren't proposing any other changes there. Next slide. The cross insurance arena, no changes. We were at a negative $57,721 back in September, and we're still there today. Next slide. Total needs from taxes up. We have refined our general fund budget to the extent that what we're proposing this evening is a total needs from taxes of $16,452,529. That is a reduction of $51,057. And that works out to be roughly, I'd say, a reduction from where we were back in September of about $340,000, which is a significant reduction in our general fund budget for 2021. Total needs for taxes drops down to 1.3% increase. That is down from the 2.3% that we proposed back in September. Next slide. The debt capital in tan, this has been changed, and this has changed largely because we were looking at the capital reserve, the non-debt CIP. And what we're proposing here is to reduce that about $106,000, which we would be taking certain one-time expenditures out of the 2021 budget and paying for them with revenues that exceeded expectations in the 2020 budget. So you can see that we are reducing that line quite a bit. Next slide. Human service funding we have not touched. However, I have put in your packets this evening the applications that we have received and what their requests have been. The applications were due in the end of October. For the September presentation and the numbers this evening, that was the allocation that I had proposed bringing forward. Next slide. The capital. We have added, because we are in negotiations for a long-term lease for the court side of the building with the state court system. And there are some significant improvements that we need to make over there that we have been putting off for a while. And so we're proposing to add to the bonding next summer of $1.2 million. Through the arrangement that we're currently talking through, it would be a split between county and state contributions to pay off that 1.2 million. And in the first number of years, the state will be paying the bond, not the county. So even though it shows up here, it does not affect our bonding numbers that you just saw on the previous slide. So that would be an increase of 1.2 there. So we'd be bonding just over $2.1 million next year. Next slide. So how are we doing all this? Well, here's the non-debt CIP and different one-time purchases that we've pulled out of department budgets. As you can see, just over $104,000. What we would like to do is we'd like to move and purchase these in the 2020 budget. As the commissioners are aware, we have had a budget freeze on since March or April. We have also seen revenues, in particular the Registry of Deeds, because of home sales and low rate mortgages and refinances. There has been a significant revenue experienced in the Registry of Deeds, and we feel as though we're going to have enough in the 2020 budget to take care of this $104,000 worth of capital, so that we can save it from the 2020 budget. 2021 budget. Next slide. We also did some further cuts. We cut $40,000 out of the public referendum account. And we also found that we had purchased the ID card printer already in the 2020 budget, and somehow it was still in the 2021 budget. So we're proposing to remove that out of the 2021 budget. So the budgets are $42,275 savings there. Next slide. And then we're proposing, because of the revenue that we're experiencing and the savings from the freeze, we're proposing to allocate $400,000 into a budget stabilization plan. What we would do with this $400,000 is that we would tuck all that into a reserve today, and we would apply $200,000 of it in 2021 to to reduce the needs for taxes. In 2022, we would need 125,000, so we would step down 75,000, and we would use 125,000 out of this reserve account. In 2023, we would step down once again, but only by 50,000, and use 75,000 out of this reserve account, which would deplete the $400,000. And then in 2024, we would need to step down from the 75,000, and we would be back on solid ground. But we feel as though the budget stabilization plan would allow us some relief in the 2021 needs from taxes impact to our communities, and really reduce what you saw in the previous slides, a budget significantly, which would reduce impacts to our communities at a time that they're going to need it when they're building their budgets next year. Next slide, and I think that might be it. And that's it. So we hope that you find that this is a creative way of addressing how we're handling, finishing up the 2020 budget, and how we're taking some of those assets that we have in the 2020 budget and applying them to the 2021 budget to soften the increase that we had proposed back in September, and move forward with a lesser increase, and really a decrease by 51,000 in the general fund and another 57,000 in the cross insurance arena. It really only leaves the jail budget as a budget impact this year to the towns. And so I look forward to having a conversation with the commissioners on this budget plan, and what comes out of this meeting will probably be lining up for a budget presentation in December. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a, yeah, I feel like this is me watching Rumpelstiltskin spin straw into gold. And I appreciate the presentation. It's always amazes me that we can always squeeze a little bit out of here and a little bit out of there, and it ends up adding up to a lot at the end. Comments and questions from the commissioners. Steve, you got some thoughts? You're muted still, Steve.
I'm going to bring up my old saw again. How are you going to obtain the bonding? Are we going to have to go and vote to get it?
No, that bonding falls under the threshold that we're allowed to bond on an annual basis.
Which is what?
I think it's roughly $4 million, Alex.
Yeah, it varies as we go up, but it's certainly well below that amount. Yeah.
Is that the one where you get 1/10 of the pop? Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
What?
What happened? I was told flatly that that wasn't valid, that we couldn't do that.
I'm confused.
Well, so am I.
That we couldn't exceed that amount, but we're well below.
No, that you couldn't use it. That you couldn't use that method of getting capital. That you had to, that bond council didn't accept it, and neither did our council, even though it was their firm that agreed on the charter.
There'll be a little bit.
I mean, I'm not all wet here. I remember being told flat out that we couldn't do it. Now we can?
Sure. I mean, that's how we've been doing bond issuances for the past bunch of years. Nothing's changed.
Alex, I think he might be thinking of when we were looking at that fund as a resource to build a new building. We brought in bond counsel and asked, and they had told us that we could not use it for that purpose. But not
that is because the overall amount of that was going to be well in excess of it, and simply attempting to break it up wasn't something that was going to be kosher. Also, there was the problem of the fact that it was possibly multiple use, but no, these smaller ones wouldn't fall into that same category. Sorry, I wasn't thinking of that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Travis.
Other questions and comments? Susan?
Can we talk about the grants and the social service funding? I noticed on this that the County Extension Association, and with what we give to Strive 2027, was more. And I would like to make a cut maybe, or some discussion on, we're cutting the Cumberland County Extension Association. Because if I read this right, Jim, it's allocated at 130,000.
Yes, that is what I proposed in my proposed budget back in August, September, to fund them 130,000. As you can see, they've made a request for 150,000.
Right.
I do agree that this is no surprise to the commissioners, because you've heard me talk about this for the last 3 or 4 years. This just seems a little out of whack in terms of funding level compared to what we give in other grants, and especially when you compare it to the Thrive 2027 money that we provide.
So I would like to make a cut in that, maybe by 20,000. Or even more, because the Strive 2020 is only getting 100,000, and that goes, to a lot more of the agencies, that we have supported in the past. And I just think, that County Extension Association, that's a lot of money, and there's a lot of uncertainty here for the next year with the county, with where we're going to go with this, with this pandemic, and that the county, might need, some more of that monies, for ourselves than to be giving it out, to extension associations. And I probably would support them. But I think under the circumstances and, with what's going on, that we need to really have a look at these, our grants and these social fundings and stuff, and we'll bring them in, to line with the rest of the agencies, that we will fund. So those are my thoughts. So I don't know where everybody else is on this. So
Commissioner Cloutier.
It seems like this comes up every year or two without fail. And I understand what Susan is saying. And of course, we go back a number of years to a point where, frankly, the budgets that we're talking about now were about a quarter or less of what the budgets were for all of these activities in those days. But frankly, I've always thought, and I'd love to hear whether somebody could look into this and have a little better understanding that they could express for us on whether this is actually true. I always thought the Extension Service was a lot closer to a department of the county government than it is an outside agency that we're kind of gratuitously evaluating for the public good they provide, which is something like what we do with relation to all of these. As I understand it, the county has a joint responsibility with the University of Maine to operate these extension services. And I know the university, and I'm delighted they do it, takes kind of the laboring oar with that. And most of the people that are working in Falmouth are employees of the Orono campus, if that's an actual entity. But I'd like to understand whether in fact, we should be thinking of them much more like an agency than we are some kind of a grant recipient who kind of comes in here in an area which otherwise is kind of like a discretionary area of our budget. We were pretty lucky the last, I don't know if we're lucky, 2020, I don't think we've been lucky about anything, but we have received now well north of $1 million, and we may be pushing a little closer to $2 million in funding that we weren't regularly expecting through the CDBG program to address a lot of the severe survival almost issues of housing and food and that kind of thing. And there's obviously no guarantee, and the warning that we just had may well be right, that there won't be any further funding for any of that over the next year, and it's going to be a time of need. I think we all understand that. But I'd like to understand before we start deciding whether their budget was any good and whether we should be looking at what would be a discretionary cut in their budget, kind of unassociated with the details of what they were going to spend their money for and what they had their revenues for, what the composition of their revenues were. I'd like to know what people conceive is our responsibility for those programs. There was a time when I spent a lot of time at their meetings, and I was astonished at how broad and systematically developed the 4-H program was. I never realized that there were hundreds of school kids all across the county, including in some of the urban areas, who are in 4-H clubs and doing various things. They don't just raise cows; they build robots and all kinds of other stuff. So it's but anyway, that's something that has always bothered me whenever we've cut their budget many times. But I've always wondered, why is it that we're doing that in the face of the fact, as I understand it, that we have a statutory obligation to support them. So that's, and that I'm sure we'll discuss it come budget time, but that is something I'd like to know about.
I can definitely do some research on that. I do know in past research that has been done, there is state statute around that counties need to give to the extension service. It does not say to what level counties need to give. It only just says that the counties need to provide some capital to the extension service. In polling other counties, I think it was last year or the year before, we by far give the most money to the extension service. I mean, double if not triple other counties statewide. But I will do some more digging and put a formal memo together to address your concerns or questions, Commissioner.
Susan.
That was my understanding, what Jim just said, and before what Jim had spoke, that's what I was going to say. It was always under the assumption that the counties had to support them, but there was never a given amount, with this, that we would support, with the two, and also the Cumberland County Soil and Water. So if you could get us that information, Jim, that would be good. But that was always my understanding, that we do have to support, but there's no set amount.
Yeah, Jim Cloutier.
And I think the comparative numbers, and if we compare the populations and that stuff too, might well be helpful. But it probably would be helpful to share that with the extension service too, if whatever conclusion it tends to show, so that they can anticipate that we're not just doing this by the seat of our pants, so to speak. Thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing the memo and trying to figure out what it means.
Okay. Jim Gailey, back to you. Or does commissioners have any other comments? Okay, Jim Gailey, back to you. Oh, sorry, Steve Gordon.
Yeah, with this extension service, it would seem that, at least my understanding of them, they're really all aimed at agricultural programs. And am I wrong in understanding that the small farm is coming back and that there is some effort in that area? And if so, aren't they under another agricultural program that assists them? So my understanding, and I'm glad that Jim suggested that we get more information. My understanding is that used to be under their aegis and now is no longer there.
Yes, Jim Cloutier.
I know generically from, working in economic development issues, there was, and this is dating back, it's probably the information's at least 3 years old, but there had been a string of about more than 5 years of 8% compounded growth in Cumberland County in agriculture, much of it concentrated in small farms, some as small as an acre. That was the primary household income being derived from farming activities. And I do know that the bulk of the support for that is through the Cumberland County Extension Service. Their budget is a lot more than 135,000, but a lot of it is payroll that is on the University of Maine budget. So they have several scientists over there and a small administrative staff, and then they sponsor a variety of community related education and technical support for farmers. And you would hope that there's more than that available for farmers, and I assume the Maine Department of Agriculture has things that it does as well. But this would be part of what I'd be interested in, really understanding a little better, frankly, because it's not just the 4-H clubs. There's like 4 or 5 segments to what they do. One of which is public education. People take classes and that kind of stuff, and how to grow tomatoes in their garden or raise their bees in the backyard. And at the same time, there's also technical support for larger operations. So, and who else might do that, I don't know.
Yeah, bees and chickens are high on some towns' lists of ordinances. So, other discussion or comments about this? Yeah, I would like to get a little more information about it. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with the idea that we need to put financial support behind agricultural efforts. Cumberland County is much as those of us who live in the big city part of Cumberland County is not all paved over in cities. There's a lot of agriculture going on, and even within the cities, there's a lot of urban agriculture that to a surprising to me, every time I find out more about it, I'm always surprised about what's going on. So if I think the county we ought to educate ourselves a little bit more, and then we can apply that information to making a good decision here. So Jim Gailey, if you can help us out with that, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, what's next?
That's it for workshop. I guess the biggest question I have is, anyone have any heartburn on the direction that I am proposing we bring this budget? It's really a tactic to try to reduce the impacts to the communities.
Sure.
On our 2021 budget. My only wishes were that we could have done more to try to offset that jail budget, 4%. But I think this is really showing a good effort by the county in really taking a percent off. We were back in September at 2.3%, and now we're at 1.3%. So I think that's a pretty legitimate budget during these times to bring forward.
Yeah, Jim Cloutier.
Yeah, I just have a general comment, Jim. First of all, I think you're absolutely right that not only showing that you're interested, but actually doing something to try to lighten the load, which is a pretty heavy load this year for the taxpayers, and of course the towns always think of that as their money, even though it's assessed the way it is. But and so I support everything you've done, and I share Tom's idea that the nicks and scrapes as you go down through things and study things as closely as you can sometimes can add up to something substantial. And I say I support it despite my usual inclination, if you can achieve some savings like this from year to year, would be to hope that we could be throwing money into the undedicated reserve funds and keeping our bond rating happy. But I think this is an extraordinary year, and I know enough about how these budgets get done, and there's a lot of work, I'm sure, to get to the point that you've managed to get to. So my hat's off to you.
Well,
Yeah,
Alex,
Commissioner Jameson.
tremendous amount of work on this. So kudos. Just want to recognize Alex because he's crunched a lot of numbers, done a lot of forecasting, and we wouldn't be able to present what we did this evening unless Alex hid in his office for a couple of days and figured it all out. So,
Yeah, I think it's, the understatement of the night for me to say that it's been a very bizarre year from that sense. Obviously, you would never normally see so much movement from Jim and I right at the end here, but we had to play it safe and in many ways continue to need to do so. But to come back to Commissioner Cloutier, we're hopeful that we can do this and still tuck enough away to keep our bond rating up.
Commissioner Jameson. You're muted. Neil, you're muted still. You're still muted. There you
Maybe
go.
that means
Okay.
no one wants to hear me at 8:15 tonight. Just quickly, congrats to Alex and Jim for the overall presentation, but very creative suggestion about taking current money and pushing it out to be used for budget stabilization. Like that approach. I think very, very creative, and I think ultimately will be helpful. But 1.3%, whatever it is, that's outstanding in any budget. So thank you for all your diligence and efforts.
Yeah, other comments? Yeah, I'm particularly pleased. I know we got a letter from the mayor of Westbrook a few weeks ago, sort of saying, throw us a bone here. Can you help us out? And I hope that if we can do this, I hope that we specifically go back to the mayor of Westbrook and say, we hear you. Here's what we've done. And so we've shaved a point off the tax burden, and we recognize that your constituents are our constituents, and that we need to be careful. We need to be careful with what we do. So I my hat's off to you for doing this, Alex. I mean, you do stuff that sometimes I don't even understand what you do, but it all makes sense at the end, and I'm happy to see you. Better you than me is all I could say. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Any other comments about this? Seeing none, I mean, I think I'm going to adjourn the meeting unless Jim Gailey, do you have anything else to add?
I have nothing. Thank you for your time this evening. We did a lot, and you brought some great guidance, so I can proceed on many things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm
Thank
going
you
to
all.
just call the meeting adjourned and see you all. See you all when we see you. I think after Thanksgiving at this point. So
Yeah, happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving to all of you, huh?
yeah, bite that turkey or whatever, whatever you're gonna do. All right, thanks a lot. See you guys later.
But,